you say that in your life that there's as much lack of confidence or uncertainty as you've ever seen in the business community.
Yeah, I think there is, and I think there's very little expectation about tonight's speech or anything that will happen in the next 18 months, and I think that's what's causing some of the delays in business. Why is there so much
uncertainty?
Well, I think the uncertainty lies in the fact that we know there are fundamental problems in this economy. They're severe, they're significant, and the uncertainty lies in will they get fixed and when. And I don't think anybody believes much progress will get made in fixing any of them.
But the lack of confidence is in government, not Democrats, not Republicans,
not Americans.
In the ability of our government to develop a plan that will fix these problems over time. These problems can't be fixed overnight, but we'll fix them over time and we'll stick to the plan.
If demand came back and all of a sudden someone turned on the lights in Europe and turned on the lights in the emerging markets in China, and if that happened and demand came back, would businesses then invest and hire?
Well, my thesis is that demand is not going to come back in the U.S. because everybody is holding back because of this concern. Now, we may see other countries that make some progress, and for the global companies, that may be the saving grace.
Okay, so I'm going to have a cynical view today. What do you make of the argument, and I've heard investors say this, that all this uncertainty actually is bullish, in that over the next 14, 18 months, nothing will happen. The if nothing happens, if gridlock happens, that's good for the Republicans. If the Republicans own the White House and the House
or even
and the
Senate and House,
unto itself, that will become a bullish sign, and therefore, if you're an investor, this is actually not a bad thing.
Look, long term,
I know that's the most cynical and depressing and sad way to think about it.
Really not that cynical.
It is cynical.
It sounds cynical to me.
It does sound evil.
Andrew, I agree that to some degree that's right. Listen, I'm an optimist. I'm an immigrant to this country, and I believe that this country will right itself.
From where?
From Canada.
Okay.
But I believe the country will right itself. I just don't think there's going to be any progress in righting itself in the next 18 months.
Because of the cynicism of the politics.
Because of the cynicism of the politics. And I think from a business perspective, a perception that we have a White House for the first time that just does not get the way the economy works.
You really believe that?
I absolutely believe.
What examples do you have of that?
Well, I think nothing that the White House has done has demonstrated that they understand it. The ramp up of regulation, the healthcare reform, and I'm a great believer in healthcare
but you start saying that you gotta.
No, I was going to say you see them hire daily. People thought that was we're gonna have Valerie Jarrett on the broadcast at 8 o'clock hour.
No, we rest our case.
She proves what?
No. I was going to say we're going to have her.
I mean, why are you holding that up?
Is there something?
Are you playing into his hand?
Are you going to be here at 8?
No, I'm not.
Okay, if you could ask her one question, what would it be?
I don't know if there's anything to ask. I have no expectations between now and next November.
Just zero.
Zero expectations.
There's no. Okay.
I really do. I know it's a pessimistic view, but I really do have zero expectation. I have zero expectation that anything will come out of the White House that'll move us forward. And even if it did, the Congress will pass
he's a Canadian. He's comfortable with a certain level of socialism.
You are a U.S. passport holder now?
I am a U.S.
He's comfortable with a certain level of socialism, and he isn't even comfortable.
Listen,
are you a U.S. citizen?
I left Canada because I thought Canada was heading in the wrong direction.
Did you have to become a citizen
ago.
So you could own a piece of one of these airlines? Does that have anything?
No, I didn't to own one, but I did to become CEO of American. But I've been an American citizen for a long time.
And that's why you had to do that.
Yeah.
Of course, to be the CEO of American Airlines, you got to be American for goodness sakes. Right, of course.
Well, it is interesting. Airlines have been wrapped up in the country's nationalism for years and years.
And you're dealing with it at Virgin America. I mean, Richard Branson always wanted to actually run that company.
I don't think Richard wanted to run it. He wanted to see the Virgin brand established in the United States.
But wouldn't it be perfect one day if Virgin America could be tied to Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Atlantic could be tied to Virgin Blue down in Australia?
In a marketing sense, it can, and that's the beauty of the brand. It's a wonderful brand, and it is already tied. They don't need to be running under the same operating umbrella.
Canada does some things that we can learn from, though.
Absolutely.
Banks very strong. Housing.
Well, and government, you are seeing absolutely methodical, thought-out restraint in government spending up there.
Yeah.
The lines have crossed between the United States.
What about healthcare? Is Obamacare worse or better than the Canadian system?
I think it's worse. And I'm not an advocate of the Canadian system, but I think it's worse.
Because
because I think at least the Canadian system, while a lot of choice has gone away, at least someone's managing the expense, and they are managing
But borrowing from the future, I mean, unfunded liabilities out the yin-yang, just like we're dealing with Medicare here.
But on the other hand, they're paying for their medical care as it goes. It's a pressure on the government. Their percentage of GNP that's going into medical care is dramatically lower than ours.
It's done on a regional basis, right? It's different states, so it depends on what province you're in and stuff. But they do have unfunded liability issues for sure.
And they're paying nothing for drugs.
Don,
that is true. They're paying a lot less for drugs.
We Americans foot the bill for the rest of the world.
We're subsidizing
everybody else.
Right.
So nothing. You're not optimistic about the next year and a half or whatever. Okay. Well, let's say that the president wins re-election, but the Senate goes to the GOP. Well, then you say we won't. The next 4 years, you won't expect anything, or something could happen.
I think we'll have to wait and see. We will clearly have a changed platform of some sort in Washington if this continues for another 18 months, whether the White House changes, whether simply the Senate changes. But clearly that will be a strong signal to whoever is sitting in the White House, in the Senate, and the House of what the American
So
people
you don't
want.
think any Keynesian type government spending to actually create jobs, you don't think that's the answer right now?
Good God, no. I mean, unless it's offset by spending cuts someplace else.
So spending is where we're
What about
control?
You would be able to speak to infrastructure. There's all this talk about spending more on infrastructure, but when I look at the way infrastructure money is spent, especially when it comes to airports, for example, it's not doled out based on need or the size of the airport. When I look at the last bill, they spent millions and millions of dollars on 2 tiny airports in Alaska that served less than 200 people. I mean, it's all politically driven rather than driven by need.
It is, and it's very unfortunate. Again, another great contrast between Canada and the United States. Canada privatized all these airports 20 years ago.